Good morning, guys. We're starting our Unit 3 today officially, and our first story that we're going to read is A Bird's Free Lunch. It's an excerpt. There's that word again. We've seen this several times. That means a piece or a section of a story from The Wit of a Duck and Other Papers. So, as we begin to look, we notice that first paragraph is in italics, and it's giving us background information on John Burroughs. And you may notice that this was written by John Burroughs. So it gives us a little bit of background information about the author to possibly help us understand a little bit about maybe why he wrote it or what his interests were. So we'll read that to see a little bit more about what we need to know about John Burroughs. So as we read today, we are focusing on those key details, the details that are important to moving the story forward. John Burroughs. Now the dates that are inside the parentheses tell us when he was born and when he died. And that might be a little important. It lets us know that he was around a long time ago, before our time. He was a popular nature writer whose essays helped start the conservation movement. That's pretty important. He helped start that. He was best known for his essay about birds, flowers, and rural scenes observed from his home in the Catskill Mountains of New York. So he did a lot of his observing from home. Of his beloved home, Burroughs said, "Those hills comfort me as no other place in the world." So when we talked last week about how nature affects us and makes us feel and all of those emotions when we did our introduction, we can see that he has a true love of nature and absolutely comforts him. He wrote about it all the time. He started a conservation movement, and we'll learn more about that. All right, paragraph 1. We're just focusing now on those key details. One winter, I fastened pieces of suet and marrow bones upon the tree in front of my window. Then I sat at my desk and watched the birds eat their free lunch. I'm just gonna highlight this because I noticed that what he's saying here sounds a lot like the title. I can't highlight this morning. The jays bossed the woodpeckers. The woodpeckers bossed the chickadees, and the chickadees bossed the kinglet. These last 3 sentences kind of showed us who was boss in the bird world. So we have the jays, they were the top dogs. The woodpeckers were in the middle, and those poor little chickadees were at the bottom of that pecking order. The kinglet was the least of all, a sort of hop-on-my-thumb bird. He became quite tame and one day alighted upon my arm as I stood leaning against the tree. So now we have I'm so sorry, it was right here. And the chickadees bossed the kinglet. There, I was going to say, they didn't mention him before. I skipped that last sentence, didn't I? Notice right here, we have a little number 1 next to hop on my thumb. And at the very bottom of our page, it says, hop on my thumb, very small. The reference is to the folktale character Tom Thumb, who could fit into the palm of a person's hand. So this is in reference to a folktale character who was teeny weeny. And so when they say a hop on my thumb, they're actually referring to Tom Thumb in a way of describing that bird. I could have put my hand upon him several times. I wonder where he roosted. He was all alone. He liked the fare so well that he seemed disposed to stop till spring. During one terrible night of wind and snow and 0 temperature, I feared he would be swept away. I thought of him in the middle of the night when the violence of the storm kept me from sleep. So we have an entire paragraph here about the kinglet. So that means that this bird must be pretty important to John Burroughs. So what does he want us to know about the bird? What are the key details? My thought is that initially He became quite tame. He was all alone, which means that he's by himself and during bad weather, he may have a hard time surviving, right? So if I were going to create a key detail to describe the kinglet, I would use those details that were highlighted. He was tame. He was alone. And as we know from the paragraph before, he was, and he even started this paragraph here with, he was the least of all. So he was the bottom of and this is called pecking order. Pecking order is the order of who's boss. So if you think about it at home, sometimes moms are at the top of the pecking order and sometimes dads are. But who's the boss? He's at the bottom of the pecking order. So those are the three details I might use to describe this kinglet bird. All right. Imagine the solitary atom and feathers drifting about in the great Arctic of outdoors and managing to survive. Guys, I'm going to highlight this sentence not because it's a key detail, but because we're going to talk about this in class today. Because it's a lot of words that when you just say them all at once, you're kind of like, huh? Okay, I really want you to think. I'm going to do my little light bulb here. Think about what this might mean. Imagine the solitary atom. What do we know about the word solitary? Atom and feathers drifting about in the great Arctic of out of doors and managing to survive. Think about that this morning before you come to reading, because we're going to discuss what it means. I fancied him in one of my thick spruces, his head under his tiny wing, buffeted by wind and snow, his little black feet clinging to the perch and wishing that morning would come. So this is describing Burrow, the author, Burrow's thoughts about the kinglet at night while he's trying to make it through that cold night. Okay, his head under his tiny wing, buffeted by the wind and snow, his little black feet clinging to the perch. Clinging makes us think something different than just sitting on the perch, and wishing that morning would come. The fat meat is fuel for him. It keeps up the supply of animal heat. That sounds like maybe that's a key detail. Put Katie over here. Key detail. None of the birds will eat lean meat. They want the clear fat. The jays alight upon it and peck away with great vigor, almost standing on tiptoe to get the proper sweep. The woodpecker uses his head alone in pecking, but the jay's actions involve the whole body. Yet his blows are softer, not so sharp and abrupt as those of the woodpecker. Pecking is not exactly his business. So we have some kind of important details here. We have the idea that the fuel, his fat meat, is fuel for him, and none of the other birds eat lean meat. Okay, they want clear fat. So we have the jays alight upon it and peck away with great vigor. So here we have the jaybird pecking with great vigor. The woodpecker uses his head alone in pecking, so just his head to peck. But the jay's actions involve the whole body. So here we're comparing and contrasting what's the same and what's the different between the woodpecker and the blue jay. Yet his blows are softer and not so sharp. So his blows, his is the jaybird. are not so sharp or abrupt as those of the woodpecker. Pecking's not exactly his business. Okay, so we have some key details. This one's about the kinglet. These details are about the woodpecker and the blue jay. Okay, and that is where we are finished with this. So today we are going to write a summary together. So we have a lot of details. Some of them were not key details. Remember, we kind of put key details on, we noted them out here. This is a key detail out of paragraph 4. Here are key details out of paragraph 5. These are details we would probably combine. Remember, we don't always have to write each detail by itself. We can make compound sentences to bring them together into a short summary. Remember to go back to paragraph 3 up here and think about this first sentence. Think about what you know about the words you see in order to make meaning of what this means. Okay? And then we had key details on this first page that gave us some description of the kinglet bird. All right, my friends, we shall see you in a little bit in reading. I know I told you guys last week this unit, the language and the vocabulary is a little more difficult. So we're going to work through it together. And if you're kind of confused, I think by the time we finish discussing it today, you'll feel much better about what this is actually saying and the things that we're learning. So just hang in there and don't get too discouraged because we'll work through it, okay? We will see you in just a little bit for reading.